Hello. How's everyone going? This is Impermanence, and today I'm here to make a tier list of what I think the meta is out right now, as of the new ban list and Afterworlds. First and foremost, shout out to Ruben for winning it all at the World Championship. You did everyone proud of representing the U.S. baby, back-to-back champion, and all that, and all that, right? World's quieted down and all that, right? I figured a few days after I can kind of see like what we can do with the new tier list and all that. See like what's the cream of the crop, what's the best of the best, what decks you should be playing, what you should not be playing, and all that, of course, right? And of course, this is before Rage of the Abyss and all that. We do got our 1 month break and all that, right? Megatons is around the corner and all that. So I figured we give it a talk. So I am going to explain the tier list real quick. First and foremost, cream of the crop. This is probably the best meta decks right now that you could be playing and all that. Could win it all. Theoretically, these decks could beat the cream of the crop decks and all that, and could win a YCS or a regional and all that, right? Could get tops. This deck is very competent, consistent, and can be able to beat any of the aforementioned decks above or below and all that, right? But it's just missing one or two things that keep it away from that specific tier list. Very much playable. Could be any deck, right? It is on all that. Is just decks that it gets the random top and all that, right? People think, oh, this deck could be it. This could be the meta breaker and all that, and then we don't talk about this deck after that. You can go for locals. These are decks that I think you can play them. They are consistent. They got plays, but they can't stand much against to the better ones above it and all that. And then of course you got Rogue, which is just Rogue. So first and foremost, let me just put you right there. First, the Dragon Rulers, right? We got 2 of each Dragon Rulers as of the current ban list now. I don't think they're going to have that much of an impact. But, hey, if you want to relive 2013 again, go right ahead, right? Up second, we got, let's go with Ritual Beast, right? Being a shifter deck and all that, right? Having shifter and protest still legal for this deck is insane and all that, right? Which is probably now their main game plan, of course, right? Being a shifter deck, it means that it shuts off pretty much every other deck's main game plan and all that, and of course, and all that, having 3 Canahawk, you can generate so much resources and all that. I think this deck could win another YCS and all that, but given with the bigger elephants in the room, it's gonna be hard and all that, right? The game's gonna eventually get power creep Ritual Beast out, which is very, very unfortunate. Next up, Ubel, it just won Worlds, and of course, even with the ban list losing 1 Spear Gates, I think the Spear Gates hit is fine, right? And all that, right? That's just another, I guess, a win more card in a sense. Deck didn't really needed it, but it was nice to have, of course, right? But now, hey, I know this deck still gets 3 Phantom. It's still playing the Fiendsmith stuff and all that, right? Yeah, no Lacrima's cool, but guess what? They already got a 6 in Sharvara. They still got another 6, so we'll go make Caesar or Ptolemy, right? You don't play Beatrice because the deck never played Beatrice. I think the deck is still, like, I think it's the best deck right now in the room. And of course, Fire King Snake Eyes, Fiendsmith, right? And all that. Pure Snake Eyes, however, I don't think can compete with the other 2 and all that, right? Right, having 1 Ash, 1 Poplar means that the deck is much more less consistent in pure, meaning the deck, it's harder for the deck to get it rolling and all that, right? Having 1 Poplar in hand sucks and all that, right? But even 1 Poplar is still full combo, right? But of course, with the Fiendsmith stuff, it adds just much more consistency and all that. No, Beatrice sucks, but who needs Beatrice? They can just end on more negation, right? You can end on Caesar. You can end on a Disarray. These decks are fine. But the Fire King stuff specifically, right? It has a lot more disruption for your opponent, right? I think this is just, I think, the synchro version, but I'm just gonna group it up together, right? Mibigol TCG exclusive. This is in a point where I don't know how the new supports, the next wave support is going to help this deck. Right now, with what Mibigo has right now, it's also technically a shifter deck, right? You run like a cash engine with Fenrir, Unicorn Birth, just ripping cards off of your opponent's extra deck and stuff like that, right? And all that, right? But depending on how the second wave of support in Rage of the Abyss goes, that would make or break this deck. It's still very playable with what they have right now. Dragon being a Raigeki's really good. Cerberus banishing top 3 and all that. It's really good. Master's a very good normal and all that such, right? Dungeon itself is a very good floodgate and all that, right? The deck is good on paper. It's just whatever we get in the second wave will make or break this deck, of course. Tenpai, it's Tenpai, right? OTK or bust. You can and all that, right? Theoretically, losing one Saiyan something prosperity sucks for consistency, but if the deck can still OTK you and all that, it will OTK you. And given that with Rage of the Abyss comes out, getting that new Molt Army, right? Four Wasp and then Polaria, and it's just very bad. It's just very bad to deal with and all that, right? If you're not prepared to deal with it, it's really bad for you. I'm gonna put Plant Link. I assume I'm putting all of just Plant Link here, not just Rika. The deal with Plant Link is theoretically the best. It's one of those decks that if you're not prepared to deal with it, it's the deck that will just wipe the floor with you, right? However, we don't have that many pilots and all that actively participating with this deck, and as such, it's hard to grasp where this deck's power lies in, right? And like it could win it all, right? Or it could just drop after like top 64. The problem is just that there's not a sufficient amount of pilots to consistently put this deck. It's like, yeah, it's the right next to the big boys and all that, right? It's still a very, very powerful deck, even with the new Maroma stuff from Phantom Nightmare, right? And all that. The new Ragnarok stuff and all that helps it out a lot. It gives it a lot more combo lines and play. It's still a very, very powerful deck. Voiceless Voice. I feel bad for Voiceless Voice a lot. I think it's between these two tiers that I would put Voiceless Voice in. The thing with Voiceless Voice is they have a rather much linear game plan and all that, right? The hit to Branded Fusion hurts because a lot of that engine, right, the Branded Fusion engine, helps with more of their end boards and all that. It sucks that it got hit, right? But I think it should have been Sanctifier, to be honest, right? The deck is still fine. It's very good. Skullguard's a very good card. Low's a very good card. It helps dodge Ash Blossom because it places cards, not adds it and all that. Very good. And all that. It could beat any deck, right? I'm going to put Drytron. I want to go through in order, but I don't have a whole lot of opinions about certain this. Tiers, it's tier. I mean, it's tier limit, right? Tier limit. You could theoretically gamble it all away and get very high with it, right? Tier limit, still an excellent deck, even after the 10,000 hits to it. We'll put Branded here, right? Branded, the one Branded Fusion sucks, but they have so many other cards to Fusion summon. I don't think the one Branded Fusion hurts. The main problem with Branded is that their main game plan is puppet locking you, right? Making Sanctifier, giving you Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, and just launching you off the game. Basically locking you out the game. You're done after that, right? Right, it could still be one of the best decks to go against because you got the 40 card variant, you got the 60 pile card variant, right? The deck still has a lot of extra deck fusion monsters to go into. It can clean up games and all that, right? It can make very good, strong first turn boards and all that. Deck is still fine and all that, right? The Millennium Exodia stuff is fine. I mean, it's not good. You're paying 2,000 per activation if you don't have Millennium Ankh. It's horrible. Oh, here's Fiendsmith Snake. I won't put this snake out here, and I think I'll put this one like right here, and all that. I mean, the deck is still strong, no Appaloosa sucks, but now I'm just gonna end on Amulet Whale end board, right? You still got Princess Engrave and stuff like that. You still got the Zealantis stuff. Deck is still fine. Thunder Dragons. It's Thunder Dragons too. Colossus is cool, right? But it's Thunder Dragons. The game, it's not 2019 anymore, right? The games have gone past where it's like they will just extend through pretty much all your interaction and all that, right? If you can't do anything on the crackback, it's just, well, sucks to suck. Pearly, it's a weird thing, right? Pearly, they're getting that one hit, having them get that hit on Sleepy, I believe, or is it Delicious? It's one of the quick plays. It just hurt the deck a lot, just out of nowhere, right? It could still end on one of the strongest tower monsters in the game, Noir and all that, right? It's just all the decks above it can virtually just play through it, or it's a shifter deck, right? I mean, Tempai is also a shifter deck if you know the line, and it's very strong, extremely strong, and all that, right? But in the right hands, or in the wrong hands, it's not going to do much, right? Let's see, Lightsworn gonna be rogue and all that. Shifter is still rolling around, right? And all that, right? People, and all that, right? It's can't do much even with the new support. I don't like the new fusion that they got, because you have to run a punishment dragon, and that bum is horrible and all that, in my opinion. The deck is rogue and all that. Labyrinth, it's Labyrinth, Labyrinth still gonna eradicate you, still gonna hand rip you for 3 and all that, right? But again, with how the decks are and all that, it's just everything's gonna speed past through all of its interaction, and they don't get that much card generation unless they open real crazy, Dragon Link, it's Dragon Link, right? Them getting back the Dragon Lose is cool. I don't know how that is gonna help with the deck itself, right? It lost Baron, it lost Apo, it lost Savage, and all that. The deck, it's gonna need a lot more and all that, right, in order to be much more viable. I mean, it's still a very good deck, and it's just a lot of its end game and now just ends on Borderland Pass and maybe like a Seals and all that, right? But they need a lot more to be consistent. Not consistent, but in the sense that it can't just end on Seals Pass, the strongest end board and all that, right? Because if you can't do anything and all that, right, to an established board state, this deck just is going to fold to a lot of stuff here, right? And they can't afford to have that much non-engine in the deck, because this deck is almost relatively all gas, right? The deck needs all these cards, and it's part of its combo and all that, right? Like, all these decks can play 18 to 20 non-engine, right? Dragon Link could probably play at most 9, and it doesn't help that fact. Unchained, I'm so sorry to what happened to the Unchained. The Shavara should come back to 3. It was a very fun deck to play, but the Shavara one just sucks and all that, right? Still very playable. I mean, losing to the Shavara means you can just play another Rakea and another Saruha. Is it Saruha? Aruha? But it sucks, right? Rescue Ace. Guess Rescue Ace could get tops. This is under the assumption that you are playing this without the Fiendsmith stuff. It's just the Diabell Star stuff, right? Rescue Ace is still a good deck, very good mid-range control deck, and all that. Turbulence setting 4 is insane. Preventer Emergency, and all that, right? Still very good cards for the archetype. Sucks that you only got one Airlifter though, but the deck could theoretically get a couple tops and all that. Valmonica, it's very bad that it's a pendulum archetype, but it's also bad that the deck doesn't really have the best game plans now, because every pendulum deck essentially ends on like an Appaloosa and like something else and all that, right? Every deck that can end on an Appaloosa, right, as their main end board, it will just lose points itself, because it's not going to accomplish much if Appaloosa is their main end boss and all that, right? You know, heroes and rogue, I mean, it's heroes, they can play through a lot of extenders, but they don't have a lot of gas on the crackback, and if they used all of their extenders and all that, right? Madolche is the same deal. With the new support, it's really good. The new tiramisu is essentially a quick effect now and all that, right? Still a very powerful Xyz, but they still don't really have like true one card starters that does everything for them. Let's see here. This is just pendulum slop, right? The whole just pendulum shtick. It's fine. It's whatever. Melodious is pretty good. I do like Melodious as a whole and all that, right? With the new support they got from Legacy Destruction, it's insane combos and all that, right? A lot of the stuff just, but the problem with Melodious is that if your first movement solo and stuff like that gets negated, it's almost a wrap, right? You need at least another card in hand to at least do your combos. But Melodious is a very powerful deck, I will admit that. Schuberta banishing, I think, 3 from grave every turn is really good. I do like that. Sky Strikers, rogue, right? Drolling around and stuff like that, right? Compared to the other main control deck, it can't compete with how stuff is right now. Drytron, I probably would put it like here and all that, but like also here. The problem with Drytron, there's like 2 main groups of Drytron players. You got the turn skip players and all that on the right, playing like Black Magician of Black Chaos Max, and all that, right? You just play any turn skip cards that they can ritual, right? They're playing that. The other ones are just playing Drytron combos, which is pretty good, right? The deck did give 1 Eva, right? They have 1 Eva, 3 Ben 10, right? But I don't think they even want to play Eva anymore. They don't want to play the Herald version anymore, because they rather just make, better Drytron stuff, right? It's either you play better Drytron stuff or turn skip stuff, and that's the problem with it, right? That's what sucks. I do like Drytron as a deck, and that it broke the main ritual mechanic, right? It's still very strong, but it just boils down to, do you want to turn skip your opponent, or do you want to just play 800 negates with Herald backed up with Eva and a bunch of other stuff, right? Orcus, Rogue, you got a lot of bestials coming your way if you want to play Orcus. Infernoid, Flood and Evil are excellent endboard pieces. Problem, it's Infernoids. There are sometimes you get hands where it's Deviati, Noku, Harmodic, Deviati, and all that, right? There are sometimes, like, you want to send as many Infernos as you can to the grave, but the problem, you got 1 normal summon, and it's Decatron. That's it. You have to pray you open at least a Decatron, Grass, now that we have it back, right? Reasoning, you better pray you open one of those cards, right? Because it's either all gas, or it's, I opened 3 Deviati, Harmodic, and Mseti. No, not Mseti. Oh god, what's the Harpy's Feather Duster one? Oh dear. Oh god, but you get my point. You sometimes you get hands where it's amazing, right? It's like the best hand you could ever hope for. Or it's just like, oh, I bricked. It's just bad. Oh god. Patrulea is the one that destroys all the spells and traps and all that, right? Yeah, sometimes you get those kinds of hands, and it's just rough. Gimmick Puppet. Getting 1 strings and 1 dark strings is rough, but you could still very FTK. This deck could still FTK. It could still very much FTK. right? Because now instead of just revolving on dark strings and strings, you just now use giant grinder and giant hunter, and then you can do a disaster Leo combo effect. It's insane, right? With Metatronus, right, you can target a cattle scream that you gave to your opponent off of either the field spell or dark Machinex, and then activate Metatronus, summon these gimmick puppet of Leo, activate Chaos rank up magic Argent Chaos Force into Disaster Leo, detach, do 1,000, right? And its win condition cannot be negated, right? Because it's a win condition. So at that point, you dealt enough damage to your opponent where they're going to be under 2,000 life points. You won the game. Like, they still got ways to FTK. This deck is still very much playable. It's still good to get tops and all that, right? It can't win it all, right? Because it falls down to Droll, right? You can still imperm the stuff and all that, right? You can't Veiler, but you can still imperm, right? The field spell only protects monsters you control. So, Bloody Mary, right here in the picture, right? And all that. You can ash the Bloody Mary, right, in the hand and all that. Runic Stun. It's Runic Stun, right? You could probably put any theoretically Runic variant up here and all that, right? But I'm putting Runic Stun here because eventually everyone's going to start boating in, like, Lightning Storms, Dusters, Cosmics, and all that, right? Memento. I do think Memento is out all the decks from Valiant Smashers. I do think Memento could win it all. It's one of those decks that has one of the strongest pieces of support in Tatsunino Nico, the horse, and all that, right? Just being able to dump 3 cards and all that, right? And plussing off of those cards is insane. I love the deck. The deck is really good. I do think it's win it all. Even and you could play the Fiendsmith version, right? I think the Fiendsmith version is fine, but there are also pros of playing just pure. I do think the pure one is better and all that. Chimera. It's Chimera, right? You are hard carried by the branded engine and all that, right? Losing one branded fusion sucks. Because of that, it could be any of these decks above. It could be any of these decks below. And of course, that plays down multiple factors of what you drew for your hand. You know, who got the better hand kind of deal, right? Deck is still really good, though. I mean, I'd probably put it, like, right here and all that, right? I think, theoretically, Planet should be, like, here. Mimigal would be, like, right there. And then, yeah, I'm going to leave it like that. Because, theoretically, Plant Link could be at the very top or could be at the very bottom and all that, right? And all that. I do think Chimera has some advantages over these other decks and all that, right? They're still very much normal summon reliant, right? It sucks, but hey, this is the price that we pay for getting a brand new type and all that in the game. Pure Fire King. The deck is all right. Once we do get Cordier Alcanix and all that, I'll probably think this deck could be around here and all that, but Pure Fire King is still very slow. Very slow. The deck is just alright and all that. Deck is alright. It got hard carried with all the Snake Eye and Fiendsmith stuff, to be honest. Lunalight, also rogue. Rose Dragon stuff, also rogue. Magical Musketeer. It could theoretically win it all. The deck is really good. The problem, it is still very much reliant on Max resolving. If Max does get resolved, right, you pivot hard to the Fiendsmith stuff and all that, right? I do think the deck can win it all. Centurion, it's Centurion. Losing Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity hurts the deck because that card got hard carried by Centurion, right? But with the new support coming out, right, in Rage of the Abyss, deck is still very good. Still very good. You could still make, like, any other levels of dragons. You could still make Quasar. You can make Red Supernova, right? Deck is still fine. Still good. White Forest, again, you probably put it with the runic variant. The runic variant is pretty good. I probably put it like right here and all that, right? The runic variant is very good. Joshua Smith topped with it. Such a good deck. Very fun to play and all that. Kashtira. It's Kashtira, but the problem with this is that it's just that your main game plan, it was a Rise Heart, right? Now you're just being used as supplemental engines and other stuff. It's just ugh. But yeah, this is what I'm gonna settle on all that right now. In terms of like where everyone goes, that's a different story. I do think U-Belt is probably the best deck right now, followed by Fiendsmith Snake Eye and then Fire King's Fiendsmith Snake Eye. I probably would put like this for this tier. Tempai is still an OTK or bust deck, right? You gotta be able to draw the starter and get that field spell, but one field spell and one Prosby, it hurts the deck a lot. As for this, I want to do this, right? Tourmaline is a very much a gambling deck. The thing with Tourmaline is that you have to hope your mills hit, right? Having one of each name and know what the mill is sucks, right? Of course, except for Tillman Cashier, but that's besides the point, right? This one is really kind of just mix and match. You could put any of these at the top of this tier, right? Like Theoret and all that, right? It's just a lot of these decks lost a lot of their consistency pieces, which is prosperity, right? Like you lost prosperity, 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 right? You lost prosperity. Like a lot of these decks lost their main consistency pieces and all that, right? And it's such, it's hard for them to get these decks to perform much better to all these, because while they do have some one card starters, these cards have a lot more one card starters and all that, right? You're going on the bottom now. I think about it, right? The Dragon Warrior stuff, you got to supplement it with other level 7 dragons or anything like the Armed Dragon stuff, right? And all that. Runic Stun, Pendulum Slop, Thunder Dragon, like, you know, the locals ain't that bad. You could probably go 4-0, right? And of course, Rogue tier. You know what? I changed my mind. I'm putting Mimigos to Rogue until these guys are Rogue until I see the second wave of support coming on to Rage of the Abyss. This is that will make a break. Can they be meta, or can they be? Are they going to be stuck in Rogue and fail like every other? Well, I won't say every other. Gold probably got some tops. Goatee got some tops, right? You know, let's see here. Warrock failed. Oh, Warrocks. Yeah, Warrocks failed. Ashen unfortunately failed. Such a good design, but bad payoffs, right? And all that. It's a shame. But yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it as is, like this. I think this is what I'm gonna leave it as, and all that. Of course, this list is subjective into what I personally think. You can make the arguments that this deck could be could be here and all that, right? I could probably see reasoning, right? Or you can think Tempai is probably like Tempai is probably the third best deck, right, behind these two. Like you could theoretically make that argument, right? And of course, you can make, of course, if any of these are your favorite decks, you're gonna say, oh, obviously, you know, Branded's the best deck, or whatever. It's like, oh, I love Memento a lot more, you know. But this is what I personally think and all that, right? And of course, this list is subjective to change. Once October rolls around, I'll probably do one once ROTA releases, you know, give it a minute to mingle into to see how everyone does, and then I'll probably adjust as is or add more images and stuff like that. And thank you so very much for watching. I will see you guys then.